The Maryland Terps picked up a big-time victory on the road last week in Charlottesville as they defeated the Virginia Cavaliers 27-13. They now will play Villanova, who is 3-0, as the Terps look to move to 3-1 before the schedule gets a little more tough. And we'll see if they can continue their winning ways in non-conference play. It's the Flex Zone Podcast bringing you another Maryland Terps video previewing this week's game, looking back at last week's game. Make sure you sack that subscribe button, stick that like button. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on the game last week and what you're looking forward to seeing this week as the Terps take on Villanova. God's favorite host, happy to be back with you here yet again, as always. Let's go back to last week. I like to start with last week and look at the game that was, as the Terps got it done. They got it done on the road in Virginia with a winning score of 27-13. Ty Felton continuing to set the pace. 9 receptions, 117 yards. Billy Edwards threw for a touchdown, ran for another touchdown. Ty Felton leading the nation in receiving, if you don't know. Cavaliers did have a little bit of a lead, but in the second half, it was pretty much all Maryland. Edwards hit Caden Prather. He had a touchdown, 26-yard touchdown. That gave them a 14-13. And Maryland pretty much led from there with 10:55 to go in the third quarter. Felton was entering the game as the leading receiver in the FBS, and he'll be right back there again, potentially this week with another big game. And he's really helping his draft stock. He's really, really doing a good job as well. And the defense really stepped up last game, getting takeaways, getting turnovers, and Maryland has now won 14 non-conference games, only behind Georgia, streak of 24. So pretty good there. And the Maryland Terps defense, that was the biggest takeaway I took away from this game. The defense did what they were supposed to do. The secondary, the much maligned, unexperienced, young secondary really got the job done. I think as the season progresses, they will be one of the position groups to watch. I think that can really improve and really help this team because giving up over 400 yards like you did against Michigan State is unacceptable. Obviously, the competition, it dips a little bit when you play Virginia right now, but you did what you were supposed to do. You went on the road. You won by a bigger margin than I thought. You pretty much showed you were the superior team. Special teams was fantastic. Defense, as I mentioned, brought their A game, and offensively, you did what you were supposed to do. You took advantage of your playmakers, Ty Felton, Caden Prather, and you ran the football, and you committed to an identity offensively. You got a big-time win. I'm very, very happy with the win they had. Should be 3-0, but we'll take it 2-1. Now they head over to playing Villanova. Villanova is 3-0, 1-0 in the CAA. This is Maryland's final non-conference game of the season. They will host Villanova, so it is a home game in Terpsville. So come on out, wear your red, support the Terps this coming Saturday. Kickoff at noon on the Big Ten Network if you're looking for it as well. As mentioned, the Terps are 16-1 in non-conference games with wins over Virginia Tech, West Virginia, North Carolina State, Syracuse, Virginia twice, and Auburn. This is the longest streak for Maryland in 40 years. So the second longest streak in the country, as I mentioned, non-conference, 16-1. And, Georgia has a 24-game win streak. Maryland averages 45.1 points in non-conference games and 6 straight wins by at least 14 points in non-conference games as well. And they're 7-0 against FCS teams as well. 9-2 all-time against Villanova in the series history. The Terps and the Villanova Wildcats have not met since 2007. This is something you would probably see in college basketball, but you're getting into football. And, yeah, Ty Felton. He had 7 for 182, 2 touchdowns against UConn, 11 for 152 and a touchdown against Michigan State, 9 for 117 and a touchdown against Virginia. And he's the first player in Maryland program history to have 100 receiving yards in each of his team's first 3 games as well. And one more thing I wanted to point out about the defense, Maryland leads the nation in turnover margin, +9, 6 interceptions, 4 fumble recoveries, and only turned the ball over once themselves. This is the highest for the Terps since 1995, where they were +11 and highest by a Big Ten team since 2016, where Ohio State was +10 as well. Big shout out to the defense, as I mentioned. Glendon Miller, 2 interceptions. Jalen Husky with 2 interceptions. Dante Trader and my boy Ruben Hippolyte with 1 as well. The Terps should dominate this game. I don't really have a lot of keys per se or things they should do to really win this victory. to get this victory, not win this victory, because I really feel like they're going to dominate. I mentioned they won all of these non-conference games. They won by at least 14 points. I believe. What is the spread? It's got to be what, Maryland. Let me see what the spread is. Let me get the spread for you guys. The spread is going to be, let's see, game odds. It is a 17.5 point spread for the Maryland Terps, over under 43.5 if you're into betting those props. I think Maryland does cover. I think Maryland does win. I think Maryland wins. What did they put up in week 1 against UConn? They put up 50 against UConn. I don't think they're going to drop a 50 burger, even though I'm happy the game is at home. I could see them dropping 40, maybe 40 to, this should be like a 40 to 20 game. 40 to 7. Honestly, with the defense, they shouldn't even score 20. I think we should keep them under 20 points. That's my keys. Start fast. Continue to win a turnover battle. So force some turnovers, get some takeaways. And just score touchdowns in the red zone. Don't play around. Don't settle for field goals. When you're in the red zone, you have an opportunity to score. Do it early and often. Pound them into submission. Pulverize the inferior opponent, because you got some tough stretches coming up. As mentioned, you got to go to Indiana next week. That's not going to be an easy game. Indiana on the road. And Indiana's 3-0 going into this weekend's play. So take that for what it's worth. Then you go to Northwest. Then you host Northwestern. Northwestern, they're 2-1. Same record right now as the Terps. So you got to bring your A game. Then it's homecoming against USC. Then you go at Minnesota, then at Oregon, then Rutgers. So this next couple of games, you got to win this one. Should be, like I mentioned, coming into this game 3-0 with an opportunity to be 4-0. Then going into Indiana, which I think is a game they should win, and I'm going to pick them to win, especially this week. I think they're going to win this game against Villanova. I'll say 40 to 20. I think Edwards throws for 2 or 3 touchdowns. Todd Felton has another big day. Prather has another big day. I can see both of them around 100 yards, over 100 yards. I think Hemby in the running game, Ryan, they get going. I think they rush for over 200 yards. I think the offense is just going to do what they're supposed to do, and I think defensively they're going to force 2 or 3 turnovers, and I think they win this game 40 to 20. And by the third, fourth quarter, we could be seeing some backups, and we maybe could be seeing, I don't know, are we going to see MJ Morris? Are we going to see anybody else on the Terps possibly throwing a football? I'm just saying. Just something to think about. I hope. Cam Edge maybe at quarterback. Do we get a look at him? I don't know. If they're in the game, that's a good sign, because I would like the Terps to be able to get this thing wrapped up early and often heading into the fourth quarter. So I think the Terps win here. Favorable part of their schedule. The last gimme game, if you ask me. You got games against Indiana, Northwestern, USC, Minnesota, Oregon, Rutgers, Iowa, and Penn State, all Big Ten opponents. So it is not going to be a cakewalk for the Terps. It only gets tougher from here. They should beat Villanova. But shout out to them at 3-0. Can't take anybody lightly. But I do want to see what the Terps do. I think Loxley and his non-conference streak continues. And it's going to be an interesting game. I'm really looking at the Indiana game, because Indiana is 3-0. And Indiana has – who do they play this week? Indiana has Charlotte, so they're going to win this week. So they got an easy non-conference game, and they're at home. And they're at home against Maryland. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. That's going to be a very interesting game for the Maryland Terps taking on the Indiana Hoosiers. Again, that'd be a great basketball matchup, but the Indiana football team seems to be a young upstart team that gives me a little bit of worries the more I look at this game. I'll get into it next week, but I'm looking for the Terps to hopefully win that game. But Indiana, I'm going to see how they are this week. I'm going to scout them a little bit to see what they really do well, what could scare me against me against the Terps. What can scare me when they take on the Terps. I don't know, but I think they're young, but I think the Terps are also young too, so it could be 2 young teams. It could be really what team makes the least amount of mistakes. What quarterback doesn't make that crucial turnover? And what defense can get that crucial stop? But I want to hear from you, Terps fans. How are you feeling so far? I know 2-1. It is a little disappointing. It's a little underwhelming. They should really be 3-0. But really, Maryland, Baltimore sports teams, especially in football this past couple weeks, they couldn't get it right. And it kind of is what it is. You take the good with the bad. Maryland does this every year. They kind of have some stinkers. They lay some eggs, just like the Ravens and just like a lot of other when you need it. If you like the content today, make sure you stick that like button. It helps us out tremendously and costs you nothing in a world where everything is so expensive. Hit that subscribe button, sack it if you're new. Sound off below in the comment section. Bulldoze that bell. Let you know when all my Maryland videos drop, whenever the content drops on the channel as well. I'm going with Maryland to cover the 17.5 spread, take the over. I'm going with Maryland with a 40-20 victory with Indiana looming on the road next week. And should be an interesting week of college football. We got some big games, I believe, coming up this weekend. We got, just to kind of touch on it really, really quickly, we have, what do we got going on? I know we got a big game and a couple games in prime time. I know we got, I'm trying to see who plays this week. We got Utah and Oklahoma State on Fox. That should be good. So enjoy some football this week. We got Tennessee and Oklahoma, 6 taking on 15. That should be a good one as well. Arch Manning, Texas. Arch Manning, he will be making his debut as a starter for Texas. So that's something to look forward to as well. So we'll keep our eyes peeled and keep you posted. Stay tuned here on the Flex Zone Podcast. I'm going with Maryland to improve to 3-1. What say you? Sound off down below. I'll see you next time, guys. Have a good day.